Why the fuck was this thing in IMAX? Look, I heard that this movie was showing in IMAX for some reason, and it's just hilarious. It's like, this isn't Hateful Eight or some Christopher Nolan movie where it was filmed in 70mm and you need to experience it in IMAX to get the full quality of the picture. Hell, it didn't even cover the full IMAX screen. It still had bars at the top and bottom. And when you go to see an IMAX movie, and by the way, this isn't even like full IMAX, this is like that mini IMAX that you sometimes get at regular movie theaters, as opposed to like when you're going downtown to like the museum with the full like cover your peripheral vision IMAX. This is like fake mini IMAX, but it's still branded as IMAX. So before an IMAX movie here, you get like the pre-show, and then it ends and it cuts to black, and then it's like, you've selected IMAX with crystal clear vision and laser etched audio or whatever. And I'm like, this is fucking 50 Shades Part 3. Don't blow smoke up my ass. There's no reason to see this thing in IMAX. But I did. Why? Well, this isn't the theater I work at, but the theater that is close to my house, it has recliner seating, but the IMAX theater, the seats don't recline. So part of it was, why is this movie in IMAX? It seemed as a lark I have to go see what this is. It's like 9.5 weeks was never in IMAX, but or large format or whatever they had back when that movie came out. But I also figured that if in the IMAX theater the seats don't recline, maybe that's less creepy, because me, unaccompanied male, going to see this movie on opening Thursday night, be a little creepy if I were laying back in a recliner.
Well, hello ladies, I see we're all here alone seeing 50 Shades Freed. I hope you don't mind if I sit between you, but there was assigned seating and they left this gap open. Did you get any spirits or refreshments from concessions? I know you did. Listen, if any of you get a little too turned on from this movie, I am ready, willing, and able to go home with you.
So, I chose it for that reason. But it's weird, because this isn't a visually stunning movie, and the audio it's fine. I mean, oddly enough, of these movies, I've actually enjoyed the soundtracks, but this one actually had the weakest soundtrack. I only really liked one song in it. It's in the first Red Room scene. So there's really no reason, unless you just want to spend extra money on this movie. There's no reason to see it in a large format, and I don't know why, for, I think at least 1 week, this thing is in fucking IMAX. Anyway, so I did go see this movie, and, you know, surprise, surprise, it's actually pretty good. No, it's not any good, it's fucking boring! Jesus Christ, how does a movie series go from morally or repugnant, if not reprehensible, with its sort of like, hey, I'm a controlling asshole who is psycho and a stalker, but because I'm rich it's romantic, to a Hallmark movie with occasional spatterings of a Lifetime movie with occasional spatterings of really bad, bland softcore. Because that's what this movie is. And most of it is the fucking Hallmark movie. I don't know. Look. Maybe I should just start at the beginning, because, look, the first 50 Shades, at least it's interesting in how bad it is because of the moral aspect. Filmmaking-wise, yeah, there's some issues with it. More than a few issues with it. You can read my text review if you're interested. But it's mostly digging into how really horrible the behavior that the movie is trying to present as attractive is. And I had read the book, the first book, so I also had that, which is even worse to compare it to. The second movie, I didn't read the book on that one, but I saw the movie. And the second movie was sort of, had no narrative thrust, and it was very episodic, where it was sort of like, scene with no narrative thrust, bland sex scene. Scene with no narrative thrust, bland sex scene. It was very episodic, but if it's based on a book, which was fan fiction, that sort of makes sense that it doesn't feel like a cohesive beginning, middle, end narrative. It just kind of feels like episodes. But at least that one had some unintentionally funny stuff in it. I made a video review last year, like the Riddick poster. There's no Riddick poster in this one. I was very disappointed in that. I was hoping to see some more shitty movie posters that don't belong in Christian's bedroom. But this movie is, well, Hallmark movie because of the interpersonal dynamics between rich guy and girl, which Hallmark movies have a lot of that stuff. Either a rich guy or a prince or something, and it's all very bland and the greeting card trappings of romantic. But there's also part of it that are like, especially like the opening credits where where Anastasia and Christian are on their honeymoon, and that one is very much sort of like a Sex and the City 2 like Carrie escapade. Like, now we're in France, now we're in whatever, and I just don't. It's what? It opens with their marriage, and it's like, I don't know. Look, it does sort of rewrite the relationship a bit, where Anastasia in this movie is no longer the 12-year-old girl's brain in a 20-something body. She is more of an adult. She has a bit more agency in this movie. I'm not in the kink community myself, but I know from the kink community that I guess her label would be brat, where she sort of like does little bits of misbehaving in order to rile up her partner so that in the bedroom he takes quote-unquote revenge on her. Huh. I mean, if I were in the kink community, what would my label be? BDSM test. Apparently, I am 83% daddy mommy, 78% vanilla, 69% exhibitionist, 68% dominant, and then it goes from there. Alright, I'm a vanilla daddy? Is that a thing? Anyway, so, you see some stuff like that, like, at one part of the honeymoon, they're at, it seems to be a topless beach, and Christian, being jealous and also not wanting Anastasia to end up in some tabloid magazine, doesn't want her to take her top off, even though everyone else has their top off. Anna has a line like, "No one's gonna care about my boobs because there's boobs as far as the eye can see, it's Boobville." And in my head I'm like, boobs as far as the eye can see? I would much rather see a documentary about this beach than this movie. Anyway, and I mean, Christian is still pretty controlling in this movie, but it's not as creepily controlling as in the first one or parts of the second one, where, you know, I can understand a man not wanting his wife to be topless in public, even at a topless beach. He doesn't handle it as healthily or through discussion. Like, in this movie, it's not so much that he is a psychotic man who uses richness and affluence to come off as charming when he's not. This is more about just two people who need couples therapy because they don't communicate with each other healthily. But then, you know, she ends up taking her top off when he goes to a swim, and then he, quote-unquote, punishes her in the hotel room with pretty vanilla sex, handcuffs like the wrist to the ankle, and it's still basically missionary fucking. It's, you know, people have asked, like, why don't we make erotic thrillers anymore? Or not even erotic thrillers, but just erotic movies. Because erotic thrillers, you still get some of those. Like, movies in the Fatal Attraction or Basic Instinct type genre. But as far as movies like 9.5 Weeks, like Wild Orchid, like Two Moon Junction, we don't get those kind of movies released in theaters anymore. And probably because if you want softcore or hardcore, all of that stuff is readily available through Netflix or Showtime or Cinemax or Pornhub or whatever. So in order to make an erotic movie worth paying the ticket price, the eroticism has to be either more emotionally engaging because you really care about the characters, or more hot and heavy and wild, but with sort of beautiful photography that they wouldn't necessarily try or afford in those softcore movies. 50 Shades Freed doesn't do any of that. It's really just kind of bland stuff. And yeah, Dakota Johnson is an attractive actress. She's topless for a lot of the movie. I enjoy seeing attractive women topless. So part of that was arousing. It's also probably because I've been single for way too long. Why am I single? Oh yeah, I had asked Twitter that. I'm not fucking Moby! Anyway, so if I'm turned on by this bland stuff, it's obvious that I've been too single, and I don't know, maybe I have to try Tinder again. In any event, the sex in this movie is really kind of bland. I was going to discuss them chronologically within the story, but it's better to just take them apart. There's the handcuff to the handcuff scene. There's a scene in the Red Room where he's getting back at her for something, sort of using Red Room sex as revenge. Anna has like a bra and he pulls her tits out and is like doing stuff to her nipples. That was pretty cool. And in that scene, Anna actually uses a safe word and Christian actually stops. So it's like, wow, they're actually like obeying rules. I mean, it's not very kinky, but at least they're following that. And there's a scene with like Ben and Jerry's ice cream where they're like kind of taking turns licking it off each other, and it's a pretty pale imitation of the 9.5 week scene in front of the fridge, and it's not all that kinky or special, and they just end up having missionary fucking on the kitchen table. This is like in Aspen too, with the family in the house, so it's taboo, but not really. In the trailer, there was like a shower sex scene. I don't remember seeing that in the movie, even though there's 2 scenes in a shower. One where Christian denies Anna sex, and then one of just Anna in the shower. And then the last scene of the movie, I'm jumping ahead here, but after some various strife and Lifetime TV movie machinations, she actually gets dressed up in like a corset and a thong, and she waits on the floor of the Red Room, and she like texts him with a picture of the Red Room and says like, "I'm here at your pleasure, sir." And it's like the first like fully both parties are involved consensual BDSM scene, and you don't even see any of the BDSM. It's just sort of her waiting there, and it's like the first like barely actual BDSM, actual consensual scene, and then of course it cuts to the credits, and then there's a mid-credit sequence in like 5 seconds of them with a family. Anyway, so what's the story of this movie? So, Anna and Christian get married, and then they go on a honeymoon, and then they come back. And that's the first part of the movie. Nothing happened. I mean, on the topless beach when Christian and Anna are having like a little talk about her being topless or whatever, Christian just pointedly like, "And Taylor would see you naked." And Taylor, the bodyguard, who I just give the most like awesome internal monologue that we never get. I mean, the E.L. James is writing like this entire trilogy now from Christian's point of view. She should write one from Taylor's point of view. Like, "Topless ma'am? That's titties there." That's the gruff Taylor voice. He actually does kind of talk like that in the movie when they actually give him dialogue. I forgot. Yeah, but after they get married and they're gonna go on the honeymoon, he takes her to the runway of an airport and there's a private jet, and she's like, "You own this?" Like, bitch, your husband's a billionaire! He's rich! Why are you surprised that he has that? Anyway. So, I mean, there's some brief issues with Anastasia still wants to keep her job as like the fiction editor of a publishing thing, but at first she doesn't want to change her email handle from Anastasia Steele to Anastasia Gray, and there's a tiny fight about that for no fucking reason. That creepy guy who was Anna's boss, he's like all stalkery now. He sets up a fire in Christian's server room so we can steal information about shit, and there's not much of a narrative thrust in this movie as far as like what's propelling scene to scene. It's basically just sort of what should be the A plot of this movie should be, if it's going to exist, ends up being sort of a background B plot until the third act, where you have this guy named Hyde, who's played by the poor man's Alexander Skarsgård, and he basically wants revenge on Christian and Anna, kind of. Well, at first, it was obvious based on the last movie that he did want revenge on Anna for costing him his job and all this stuff. And then the movie, and I assume the book it's based on, awkwardly wedge in that he was in the same foster home as Christian, so he's upset at Christian because Christian's foster parents were rich and then gave him this cushy life, and the people who adopted him, Hyde, were not so rich. But the movie also tells us that he went to Princeton at summa cum laude. So maybe you weren't raised rich, but you got into fucking Princeton. And maybe that wasn't money, maybe you got scholarships or whatever, but you did alright. You went to Princeton. You worked at like 3 publishing houses. You were at a good job. You were kind of okay there. Your life didn't exactly turn out like shit. I'm just saying. Also, apparently, for his entire career, he's been surreptitiously filming himself fucking his assistants so that he can then blackmail said assistants with videos. So, you're also getting laid a lot. You got good jobs, you got a good education, you get laid a lot. What the fuck is your problem, Hyde? Jesus Christ, your life's fine. I mean, Christian's been, like, fucked up. He's still, like, a mama's boy and he's got emotional issues and stuff. I mean, Hyde's got emotional issues, too. He's trying to, like, fucking kidnap and kill people, but... it's kind of a wash there, Hyde. So, anyway, there's not much. I mean, there's like a little car chase where someone's going after them, and Anna wants to drive the, like, sports car Audi, so there's kind of a bland car chase in this movie for reasons. Like, Anna gets her own bodyguard, too, and there's some other back and forth stuff. Christian buys her a house, and the architect kind of hits on Christian for a while, and then not. Here's the thing. So, the architect plays kind of a weird role in this movie, where at first she hits on Christian. Anna dresses her down, she stops. Then we also find out that she used to date Christian's brother. And then Christian's brother is apparently going to propose to Anna's best friend. But there's some talk about maybe he's cheating on her with the architect, but then it turns out that he asked the architect to help him pick out the engagement ring. Who asked their former girlfriend or fuck buddy, who they're not exactly close friends with, they just seem to have known each other in the past, to pick out the engagement ring? That makes no fucking sense. It's just set up there to be a false conflict that is simply resolved. Also, there's a few, I want to say like 2 or 3 times in this movie, characters make mention of this architect having really large tits. She doesn't have really large tits. I mean, she's not dressed in any way that shows off her tits. She's not, like, flaunting her tits. She seems to just have average tits. I mean, if she had, like, huge tits that warrant mentioning in 3 different scenes, I would know. I would have also noticed said tits. I mean, why? Like, hire an actress with bigger tits if the tits are going to be a story point. Or not even a story point, but at least something that people bring up about the character. They're not outlandishly, they're not Anna Nicole Smith tits or anything, which is what the dialogue makes it sound like. I don't know. So, a lot of the movie is sort of that kind of thing where there's false conflicts that aren't really conflicts for a while. There's sex scenes that aren't really sexy. It's just, the movie just kind of goes from scene to scene with nothing propelling it. And then later in the movie, Anna gets pregnant because she was not taking her shot regularly. So, of course, her getting pregnant is her fault for missing her shot. It's because they have not come up with a better reason. We've seen Christian using condoms in past movies. Maybe they just stuck to condoms. Also, she gets pregnant, and obviously Christian didn't want to have kids. Anna didn't want to have kids right away. They have a fight earlier on in the movie about this. Why is abortion never a valid choice in these movies? People like always dismiss it out of hand, and I get that. If this was Twilight fan fiction, then E.L. James was kind of going after Breaking Dawn with the pregnancy storyline to adapt this. And Breaking Dawn being written by a Mormon and being very religious Mormon propaganda, because that book is pretty much just about anti-abortion stuff, just like the other movies were about abstinence. Then obviously they weren't gonna, if she's making a Twilight adaptation as this, then abortion's gonna be out of the question, but abortion's never even brought up. Like, it's not even brought up just to be dismissed out of hand like in most of these movies. It's just, no, we have the baby, we're keeping it. It's like you're affluent, liberal, white people. Abortion didn't come up into your head once? I don't know. And there's other stuff, like the helicopter crash in the last movie was apparently because of sabotage, so I guess Hyde got to that. Then Hyde he breaks into Christian's place. The movie never says this, but I assume he was in Christian's office building. How he got access in the first place, because we see him getting a badge and then changing into a maintenance outfit. But how he got in there, I don't know, but he seems to go into the server probably so that he can get access to Christian's apartment, maybe some passcodes or something, but the movie never makes that clear. And then he, like, holds a knife up to Anna's throat and is gonna, like, kidnap her, but then he's stopped. and then he's in jail, and then he posts $500,000 bail. Here's the thing, too. If he wants to claim that his life isn't so bad, I mean, he's been unemployed for a while, and he's still able to come up with $500,000 bail. Or he's at least able to come up with $50,000, 10% for a bail bondsman to cover the rest of it. So, he's not that struggling. And then, when he's out on bail, he kidnaps Christian's sister. Sister Christian. No, sorry, they don't cue that song. So he kidnaps Christian's sister, and then calls Anna, and is like, get $5 million for me and show up, or I'm gonna kill her. Okay, because now you want money. And there's this other character who we've never met before, who works at Anna's office, and she's very kind of nosy and weird, and it's very obvious from the first scene, it's like, well, she's going to be involved in something nefarious, and yeah, she's working with Hyde because he's blackmailing her because of said sex tape issue. Anyway, there's a big thing about her getting the money from the bank, and there's like tracking her through the phone. It's just a bunch of bullshit plot machinations. Anyway, Jack's shot, and then we never see him again, but apparently he's going to live and go to jail or something, and then we find out about the whole they're in foster care together. Anna, even though she's been kicked and assaulted, still has the baby, and everything's fine, the end. Oh, and prior to that, Anna and Christian have a little bit of a tiff, because when Anna tells Christian that she's pregnant, he's very mad, and it's sort of about, you're going to choose the kid over me. This leads to a fight. Well, he ends up leaving. I guess he goes to see the Kim Basinger character, though unless they cut to a brief shot of her, Kim Basinger's not even in the movie, so she's only mentioned once. So, in the Kim Basinger, it seemed like interesting stunt casting to put her in this, because she was obviously the woman in 9.5 Weeks. But then, they don't do anything with her in the last movie, and they don't do anything with her in this movie. So that leads to a fight. And it leads to one of my favorite lines in the movie, where Anna actually tells Christian, you have to grow up. Because all of Christian's crazy fucking bullshit is just about him being, not growing up from his mother crack whore burning cigarettes on his chest and abandoning him or some shit. So yeah, that had led to that, and then it's resolved, and then they're together, and prior to that last scene in the movie where it's kind of an almost healthy Red Room situation, Anna has there's like a montage of all of the romantic scenes between her and Christian with that Love Me Like You Do song playing. And it's sort of like, I remember all the good times from these 3 movies. And I'm like, no fucking movie. None of this was romantic. Don't make me think this is romantic. This was not romantic. Why do you think this is romantic? This was not romantic. This was creepy, and then boring, and then dead fucking boring. And that's it. So that's the end of the movie. How did I forget to talk about this scene? Alright, there is one other Red Room scene between the first one where he's getting revenge on her and the one that ends the movie. And ends the movie proper before the mid-credit sequence. He has her on the bed. Well, he tells her to go to one of the drawers in the Red Room, and she opens it up, and it's a bunch of very shiny chrome butt plugs, and she's like, no, and he's like, yes. And then she's on the bed, and the movie doesn't make this very explicit, but this is what I assume is happening. Anyone who's read the book can correct me if I'm wrong. So, he seems to be stretching her out with the butt plug, and then the movie intercuts this scene with a scene of Anna at her office, presumably the next morning, drinking coffee and kind of seeming like, ooh, tittery and pleased with herself. So it seems that he's stretching her ass with this butt plug. Someone's gonna gift that. And then it shows him, like, fucking her. So I assume what's happening is that he's stretched her out, and he's fucking her in the ass for the first time. And this is okay for you two, right? And he's fucking her in the ass for the first time. And then she, on the next morning, is like, ooh, that was sexy. I'm very pleased with myself for taking that dick in my ass. Now, far be it for me to discourage a woman from enjoying anal sex. That is totally not what I'm about. But by the third movie of this, especially when in the other movie she said things like, what's a butt plug, or that's not gonna go in my butt, for her to finally embrace butt sex, that is the weird that is the weird story I did not expect to be carried from the first movie. It's like, it's foreshadowing that she's eventually gonna like it in the butt. I don't know. I mean, whatever. Yeah. So that happens. What else am I forgetting before I end this? Alright, so I'm probably forgetting something else, but look, it's not a good movie. None of these movies are good. But at least the first one was at least fascinating because of how bad it was and how it was trying to portray a really disturbed, creepy man as romantic and charming and alluring. And it gave us a main character who seemed like she was way too mentally developed for the character's age. And then the second movie was just sort of, it had some laughable scenes, it had some boring scenes, it had some, Christian's still pretty creepy in that movie. And then we get this scene where the scenes between Anna and Christian feel like a bad Hallmark movie. Maybe a TV-14 one instead of a TV-PG one, but so a slightly edgier Hallmark movie. Maybe a freeform movie, but not one of the teeny bopper ones. Mixed with this weird Lifetime movie, which is about Hyde and his kidnapping plots. And then we have really bland erotic scenes, and if I were not single and if I were getting regular sex, I probably would not have in the slightest been turned on, but because I am single, I'm like, Dakota Johnson's got nice tits. I'm glad to be seeing them on a fucking IMAX screen. So, look, there's not as much even so bad it's good enjoyment out of this one. This one's just kind of boring. Like, I can recommend the first one just to hate watch it, because it's kind of fun for that. I can recommend the second one for being not terribly awful and having some unintentionally funny scenes. This one's just kind of bland. I mean, for a movie where the poster says don't miss the climax, this movie's pretty anticlimactic. This movie has more in common with the revenge scene in the Red Room where he's like teasing her pussy with this vibrator and then pulls it away from her after like teasing her with it. This movie is edging with no coming at the end. Put that on your poster, Universal. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this piece of shit. Why the fuck was it in IMAX? The theater I work at had a special screening from this like home Avon sex toy company of the last 50 Shades movie, and they canceled theirs for this 50 Shades movie, which I was disappointed about because last time I was cleaning the theater and I got one of the goodie bags. Don't have the bag anymore, I threw it away during the move, but I kept some of the stuff in it. Haven't had a chance to use any of this yet, but I had strawberries and cream warming lubricant, and then also looks like birthday cake? Is it edible? Kissable, creamy. I don't think I should do this on a Leninhawk's trying, should I? Probably not.